Hey guys, Jesse here, and today we're going to be talking all about Gundam markers. Now, as some of you might know, I hate Gundam markers, and I always try to speak out against them whenever they're brought up. But just like many beginners, when I first started out, I bought Gundam markers as they were sort of advertised, a quick and simple way to quickly repaint your Gunpla to whatever color the marker came in. So just like many beginners, I made the stupid mistake of just buying loads and loads of Gundam markers. So I know what I'm talking about when it comes to Gundam markers. I've used these and I know the advantages and disadvantages of these. So we're going to talk about what these are, the different types of Gundam marker, and the do's and don'ts of using these things. Because there is a correct way to use Gundam markers. They're not 100% horrible, but I feel like what I see often are questions and posts online after a beginner has completely recolored their Gunpla with Gundam markers, and they're frustrated with the results because it doesn't look good. So they think they're doing something wrong, or there is a better way to improve it. And I just want this video to be informative for people to catch early on that these are meant for a very specific job, and to save your Gunpla from Gundam marker catastrophe. So hopefully this video is informative to both beginners and people who are curious about Gundam markers and don't make the same mistake I did and buy like 10 packs of these things. So stay tuned and hopefully we'll all learn something. So what is a Gundam marker? A Gundam marker is essentially a paint pen filled with alcohol-based paint. So you've got your marker here, you've got the end, which has a nib that is going to absorb the paint when you push down on it and it flows out. And then you've got, as you can hear inside of it, a P. And basically what a P is, it's a bearing, usually a ball, that is used to mix the base and the pigment. Because just like regular paint, after a while, when you let your paint sit around, as you can see in this little bottle here, the base has separated from the pigment. So in order to mix it up again, I've got to shake it and mix those two things. And the ball bearing inside just helps it mix a bit better than just having just the base and the pigment inside of it. But that's basically all a Gundam marker is. It's just a paint pen that's been around for years now. Nothing too spectacular or super fancy. Only difference is it comes in more traditional Gundam colors. As you can see, this one's red. It came in this pack that also had black, yellow, and white. Some off colors here. Another set I have here is more Xeon base. So we've got like Char red and some Zaku greens and stuff. So again, that's all a Gundam marker is. Nothing too fancy. Next, let's talk about the different types of Gundam marker. Now, the most common Gundam marker you'll see, and usually the first one everyone picks up, is an ultrafine Gundam marker. This is good old GM01. This is a black ultrafine tip Gundam marker. And what this is used for is lining, panel lining. It comes in 3 colors, black, gray, and brown. I don't have a brown one here because I just don't use brown enough to justify the purchase of a brown Gundam marker. But these are good for anyone who wants to start practice panel lining and you're not too sure if you're serious about the hobby. Eventually you'll want to upgrade to panel line accent, but that's for another video, a line tutorial video I plan to do later. But this has its uses, and I do use this for a lot of things still. So this is probably the only Gundam marker I continue to purchase. Now the next kind of Gundam marker is one you saw earlier. This is a fine tip Gundam marker. This is probably the most common Gundam marker you'll find that comes in packs. The black ultra fine marker over there, usually you buy alone or in packs of other black fine Gundam markers, but for these larger ones, you'll find them in large packs. And yeah, that's about it. It's just a different nib. The next kind is what I call a flat tip Gundam marker. These are a little less common. They usually come with the metallics for some reason, maybe to help cover a larger area. But the only difference here is that the nib is differently shaped. The next kind of Gundam marker is just a smaller version of the fatter one here. The nibs are exactly the same size, but the ink in it is a bit drier. As you can hear, there's no P inside of it. So the ink in here, the consistency is a little bit different, but it's the exact same deal. It's got ink in it with the nib that you push down to release the paint inside of it. And lastly, we've got the eraser pen. This is simply a Gundam marker filled with isopropyl, like a weak isopropyl alcohol, and it's used for exactly what it claims to be used for, an eraser. It thins Gundam marker on your model, and you can use it to erase. Now, most people use this very incorrectly, and it ends up ruining your model. Trust me, I've done it. So we're going to talk about the correct way to use this before any catastrophes happen out there. But that's it. That's the different types of Gundam marker that I know of. Maybe they've made new ones, but traditionally it's really been these nice fat ones with the fine tips. So let's talk about the do's and don'ts of Gundam marker, and I'm going to talk directly because this is very important, well, at least to me. Let's talk about the don'ts first. You don't want to use Gundam marker to repaint things. Don't ever repaint entire pieces with Gundam marker because these things dry really fast, and so you can never get a consistent like base or coat. And they come on very thick. It's kind of like an anomaly. It comes on thick, yes, yeah, it dries really fast. So I don't know what the consistency of these things are, but they are just not meant to repaint entire pieces. I've seen people get decent results, but there's just a better way, which I'll talk about later. So again, don't use these to repaint. The next thing is, let's talk about this eraser pen real quick. Please do not touch this eraser pen directly to your piece if you've messed up. You will release far too much of the alcohol in here, and it'll just make your color run throughout your entire piece. And the nib on this will absorb some of that color, so you'll ruin this as well. The way you want to use this is you want to press it onto like a tray or something, get the nib on here wet, take a Q-tip, touch it to the nib, then use this to clean up. Not only will that put, just the right amount of alcohol onto the thing you want to clean, but this will absorb the ink instead of allowing it to sort of run across the piece. One time I used this to try to clean up something near a seam line, and it thinned it, and it just ran straight down the seam line, and it was on the head, so the entire head was nearly ruined. I had to dunk it in water and some other alcohol to clean it up. The next thing is, I'm just sort of grabbing markers here. As you know, in order to get ink out of this thing, you've got to press the nib in and ink will flow out. Well, again, the consistency in these things are kind of weird. So sometimes when you press it, just the right amount of ink will come out, and sometimes when you press it, nearly like all the ink comes out, it seems. So what you want to do is you never, ever want to press the nib against the piece. I don't ever want to take this piece and push it and allow ink to get all over this. You'll spend far too long cleaning this up. So what you want to do with this is to grab yourself a tray, or what I usually do is I use the bottom of the box of the kit you're working on. And I just press it into there and let the ink run, let the extra ink run onto some surface that you don't care about. That way the nib on these things have just the right amount of paint. Otherwise, you'll just ruin your piece. But do not use paint brushes on Gundam markers. They will destroy your brush because they dry so fast, and your brush is going to be so absorbent that you're just going to ruin your brush. That's good for like 1 or 2 uses, then there goes your brush. And that's about it about the don'ts. You just don't really want to repaint with these things. I don't know how much I can emphasize that. They're not meant for that. Now let's talk about what you want to use these things for. What you want to use these things for is touch-ups. Now, let's say I've got a piece here and I'm doing my regular nub cleanup, which you should check out my tutorial for. That way you'll always know how to clean up nubs correctly. But let's say you screwed up and you've got a nice stress mark on your piece. Now you don't plan to repaint your piece, you just want a straight build, let's say, but you've got some Gundam marker. You can use the Gundam marker to clean up that white stress piece. What you want to do is get some Gundam marker on there, take a Q-tip, and kind of blend it around the piece. Now the problem is, as you can see, this is a very dark blue piece, and I don't have the color Gundam marker for this, so I'm basically shit out of luck. You can kind of make it work. It'll be better than white, like a white stress mark on this thing, but there is a better way, which I'll talk about. But yeah, that's mainly what these things are for, is touch-ups. In particular, gold in this metallic set is really good for touching up the Meki plated gold on like the Phoenix if you don't plan to strip all that gold off. The silver as well for any sort of silver pieces. And this kind of brings me on to my next point. Gundam markers are really good for detailing. Little tiny rivets or piping or something that you can get out with a Gundam marker, I would say go ahead and use it. I do that as well. I use gold and silver on this to touch up little raised rivets or whatever on a piece. Other things like, let's see, the yellow in this set I used for my HG Alex in my diorama, where it had like little yellow thrusters. This was actually really good for that because I could get in there, and yellow paint is usually really hard to get down, like you need several coats, but because the stuff is so thick and dries so quickly, you can usually put down just one thing of yellow and it'll be yellow. So again, details and touch-ups is what you want to use these for. And aside from the lining marker, again, you want to move on from this to panel line accent, but you can line with this all you want. But that's really the only uses for Gundam marker. They're really used for touch-ups and maybe details. You don't want to really go past that, and you sort of work with a tool or you force a tool to be working with a job it's not meant for. So on a closing note, I just want to say that, if you use Gundam marker, I'm not going to like hold anything against you or anything, but there is a better way. And that better way is paint. You want to start using paint. There's several reasons. So so I've got red here, red Gundam marker, and I'm working with a red piece. And like I said, I mess up on a nub or something, and I want to touch it up. Well, the red piece I'm working with doesn't match this red Gundam marker, so I can try my best to clean it up and touch up, but it just won't look the same. But with paint, I can mix my color. I mean, this is red, yes, but let's say the red I need to cover up is darker. I can just grab some black, mix it, put it on here, and then just get a brush and touch it up. With paint, you can do everything you can with a Gundam marker and more. You can do touch-ups, entire repaints. I don't know if I really have to explain everything you can do with paint, but it's just like, why would I choose a tool that can only do one or two things over the same sort of tool that can do several things? I know people will probably argue these are much easier, and I can sort of see that. You just pop the cap off and go for it. But considering how much struggle this has given me, these Gundam markers, because they just spew ink everywhere and the ink in it isn't consistent, this you can guarantee consistency, and you can make your own consistency by thinning it. And again, the only difficulty I can see with paint is learning how to mix your colors, but you can look up a color chart online, and you can look up the correct shades to use to get the correct shade you want. And also, the problem with Gundam markers is you're limited to the size of the nib. You only have fine, ultrafine, and that wider nib. If you really need to get in between the crevices, you're not going to be able to do that unless without touching other parts of the model. With paint, I can reach for a ultrafine brush, or I can reach for a larger brush, and I can still use the same color. And yeah, again, I really suggest starting off learning how to use paint, and it's cheaper. These will last you a lot longer than this, and these are expensive, especially if you live overseas. You've got to import these most of the times, unless some hobby store for some reason carries Gundam markers. So again, that's my closing thoughts on it. If you use Gundam markers, all power to you, but there is a better tool for the same job, and it's just a more useful skill to learn early on if you're serious about the hobby. So hopefully this video was informative and helpful for anyone that's looking to learn more about Gundam markers, or wondering why your Gundam marker isn't working the way you want it to, because I've had that same moment of frustration when I first started out. But after I learned, the limitations of these things and the endless uses of this, then it helped me build my models better and helped me relax more while building. So thank you guys for watching, and I'll catch you all next time. Bye-bye.